Okay, so if you want to work through these ratio and proportion problems, these are actually SAT practice problems, and you are asked to grid in your answer. So it says write your answer for each question, and the grid's provided below. So once you get your answer, you're going to fill it in here in the boxes, and then go down and fill in the corresponding number or symbol that you need. So if you want to do these on your own and then check them, that's great. Number 7 says, in a random sample of 200 cars of a particular model, 3 have a manufacturing defect. At this rate, how many of 10,000 cars of the same model will have a manufacturing defect? So our comparison in our first scenario is for every 200 cars, there are 3 that have a defect. So we are doing 200 cars over 3 defects. And it doesn't matter if you flip that, because as long as you use the same setup for the second half of your equation, it's going to work fine. So in the second part of the problem, we've got a total of 10,000 cars, and we're wondering how many defects we would expect to see at that same rate. So we're going to cross multiply. We've got 3 times 10,000 is 30,000, and that's equal to 200 times x. And we're going to divide by our 200. First thing we can do is cancel out some zeros. Oh, I hate that word, cancel. And we've got 300 divided by 2, which is 150 cars. So we can expect to see 150 defected cars. Okay. In example number 2, it says horsepower and watts are units of measure of power. They're directly proportional such that 5 horsepower is equal to 3,730 watts. How much power in watts is equal to 2 horsepower? So again, our word, it says directly proportional such that 5 horsepower is equal to 3,730 watts. So that's our first comparison, is 5 horsepower to 3,730 watts. We're trying to find out how much power in watts is 2 horsepower. So we did 2 horsepower over X number of watts. And we're going to cross multiply and solve. So 5x equals 3,730 times 2. Let's see, so 3,500 times 2 is 7,000. And then we need to do the 730 times 2, that's 1,460. So we've got 880, 460. So you might want to double check my math on this. So if we divide that by 5, 8460 is like dividing by 10 and then multiplying by 2. So 846 and 846 is 12, 8, 9, 16. So I think it's 1,692 watts. So again, you probably want to double check my computation, but all right. So what I really want you to focus on is the setup of this problem, okay? All right, number 9, if 2a over b equals 1/2, what is the value of b over a? So what I really suggest you do is that you go ahead and cross multiply to either get a over b or b over a and get rid of all of the numbers involved. So let's cross multiply. 1 times b is b, 2 times 2a is 4a. And then go ahead and divide by an a. And right there you have it. You have b over a is equal to 4. Okay? So b over a is equal to 4. All right. Number 10, in a study of bat migration habits, 240 male bats of 160 female bats have been tagged. If 100 more female bats are tagged, how many more male bats must be tagged so that 3/5 of the total number of bats in the study are male? Okay, so there's quite a bit going on in this one, but I think the key is understanding that this 3/5 is a ratio, that is a comparison, and it's a comparison of the number of males over the total number of bats because we want 3/5 of them to be male. So 3 out of every 5 bats total are going to be male. So our proportion here is going to be male over total bats. And if we want them to be 3/5, then we want to have 3 male for every 5 total bats. And we don't know how many total male there are because we're starting with 240 and we're adding some number of bats. So we're going to call that X, some number of male bats. X is our male bats only. And we're not entirely sure what our total is either because we started with 240 male bats and then we added 160 female bats. Then we added 100 more female bats. And we're going to add more male bats, which is our X. So we add our 240 plus our 160 plus our 100 plus X more male bats. So 240 plus 160 is 400 plus 100 more is 500 bats plus our some number of male bats that we need to add. Okay, so now we have our proportion and we can cross multiply. When we multiply this quantity by 3, we get 1500 equals 3x, or I'm sorry, 1500 plus 3x equals 5 times 240. 5 times 200 is 1000, and 5 times 40 is 200, so 1200 plus 5x. So we subtract our 3x is there, we get 2x. We subtract our 1200 from 1500 and we get 300. And when we solve for x by dividing by 2 on both sides, we find out that they need to add 150 male bats. And so that was the question. How many more male bats must be tagged so that 3/5 of the total number of bats are male? Okay, so x equals 150, all right? So the last part of this is to go ahead and put your answers in the grid, okay? So grid answers on an SAT, you can left justify, which means that you start all the way on the left side and write your numbers. You can right justify, which means they all end on the right side. You can put them in the center. It doesn't really matter, but you have to put each number in one box. So number 7 was 150, and then you shade each number to correspond to that number. So this is a 1, this is a 5, and this is a 0. Okay, if you can see there, if you needed a decimal, you would use a decimal, or if you wanted to do a fraction, you can use the fraction bar there. Number 8, our answer was 1692. So we're going to shade in 1692. Sorry about all the movement. Number 9 is 4. And number 10 is 150. Okay, so that's how you fill in grid answers. All right, so that's the end of the video on the SAT practice problems.